welcome to the Construction Record Podcast. I'm digital media editor Warren Fry, and with me today I have
Mike McKenna, Executive Director of the British Columbia Construction Safety Alliance.
And Diana Vissers. I'm a workplace mental health expert.
And we're here to talk about Remind, or Re:_Mind, if you want to Google it, which is well, you guys, why don't you tell me? Mike, you start, and Diana, you follow. Tell me what this program is all about.
Sure. So Remind is a website, but really what it is it's a repository of specific mental health resources for the construction sector. And really what tops it off, or what's the gateway in for us, is this video called The Lone Hunter. And I'll let Diana speak to some of the details around that, but really what that is a teaser, and it's something to get people interested to go to the website. And on the website, and as I said, there's lots of different resources. Construction tends to be a male-dominated sector, and typically males don't talk about mental health. What we know is that studies have shown us from the CCOHS that 25% of males, or people in general, will not talk to their employer about mental health. I think that number is higher for males. Males don't want to talk about what's bugging them. It's the old adage of, males rarely go to the doctor until they're really, really sick. And so we needed to find a way to make sure that we could get the message out and get the tools out to the construction sector. And also keeping in mind that, we're an industry that has 7 times the national rate in terms of suicides. So there's definitely an issue here, and there's definitely something that needs to be addressed. But really what again is the gateway into this website is the Lone Hunter. And Diana was instrumental in, 1, hatching the idea, and 2, bringing that idea to fruition. So Diana, do you want to explain a little bit about what that video is?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. So the video, The Lone Hunter, really was a very focused approach on building a tool that would be useful right to every construction worker who can look at it to kind of normalize the experience around mental health. There's so much stigma around that, even using those words, mental health. And this really creates, The Lone Hunter provides a story of a construction worker that many construction workers were telling us who've seen the video can relate to, where there's this image of, being the tough expert in his domain, but there's all this other stuff going on behind the scenes. And so what we wanted for the construction industry was to have tools at the ready that employers, but also just every construction worker can use to have more conversations about mental health, to start thinking about mental health differently, more like we think about it, like our physical health. Like we have certain things our body needs to be strong, to have the nutrients it needs. And when things start to go wrong with our bodies, we feel it and we do certain things in response. So we often don't learn those things about our mind. So Remind is about all of that, to just really get the conversation going in the construction industry and connect people to resources that will help them.
And on the site itself, which is re-mind.ca, you break it down into 6 parts. So I'm going to just go through those 6 parts. The first one is recognizing mental health challenges, which you might have just covered, but maybe if you want to point out anything else that might be, like Lone Hunter sort of covers that, but what else? What are other ways people can recognize mental health challenges coming their way?
Yeah, well, probably the biggest thing is just recognizing how our mental health, how our minds work, is the same for everyone. And so if you can learn about what to look for and what to notice in yourself, then there's different paths to kind of dealing with that. And some of those paths might involve professionals to help you, but there's lots of things you can actually do on your own. Even just connecting with other people around that is a really big step forward.
Part 2 goes into alcohol and drug use, and it's fairly well known in the industry that opioids, the worst affected group is males between, I think, their 30s and their early 50s. So maybe you could speak to how, and Mike as well chime in, alcohol and drug use sort of ties into the mental health problem.
Yeah, so I can actually chime in here, Warren. I think the way that we look at this is that we see opioid use as a sequelae of mental health issues. it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. And there are other bodies that the BCCSA is involved with, such as Cisco, which is the construction industry. It's a group of different associations, labor, etc., WCB, that's got together to try to get a kid in every hand, to try to get a naloxone kid in every hand within the construction sector. So that's headed up chiefly by Vicky Waldron. So we are moving on that front, but what we're trying to do is get to the root of the problem. And again, I think opioid use, alcohol use, it's a way of dealing with mental health issues. People see it as a way to kind of solve their problems, and of course it doesn't. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to move past that, and we're trying to move into the space where we're trying to figure out, why do people want to use opioids? Why do people overuse alcohol, etc.? And so that's where we see the tie-in there. And construction's a really unique industry. It's got a lot of males in it. The bar to entry can be low, so you can actually function with a mental health issue within the construction sector where you may not be able to in other sectors. And so we think it's incredibly important that we find ways that males in particular, not to discount females, because females also need mental health assistance, of course, but males in particular can find a way that fits the way that they see the world and how they seek help. And we think that going to a website that has all the resources can be a really good jumping off point to next steps.
And Mike mentioned the challenges of women in construction. So Diana, maybe you could field that one, because that's part 3 of the.
Yeah, so I want to just add to what Mike said too, and that is, that this website is a great place to go. There are so many myths around substance use, and I want to use the word addiction because that's the one that everybody resonates with. Do I have an addiction? There's a lot of myths about substance use that get in the way of people actually examining why they use substances and helping to solve the issues that might, that they might benefit from using substances. And so this is a place where people can go confidentially in the privacy of their own home, in their work truck, wherever, to see some of those, some of the truths about substance use and how to get help. And the path to help is not one. There are many. So I thought that was important to mention. And, the women in construction face very unique challenges. Warren, they represent a smaller percentage. So it really is a predominantly male industry. And they have we know the way our society works, that women have additional pressures outside of that work environment as well. And those pressures may not be as well understood or empathized in that different environment where it's not a predominantly female environment. So we have also put some information together just to connect with some unique resources that are available for women who are working in construction and some kind of self-help tools that are there as well.
Right. I know, for instance, there's people are very much trying to get women into the industry, but keeping them in this industry is a real problem. It's tough for attention, and some of that probably has to do with mental health issues, I would assume. Yeah,
Mike, you're probably better to address, what's happening within the industry. But, we do know, Mike mentioned that women are much more likely to get help and recognize that they're having those challenges. Men are not. We know that men don't ask for help, and particularly in industries where it's a physically demanding, environment where that's where your recognition comes from. There's this fallacy that, if we have differences in our mental health and we notice we're not doing well, that somehow aligns with our strength as a person and our physical strength. That's just simply not true. For women, that is an obstacle that doesn't seem to be there in the same way, but they have other challenges being in the construction industry.
You're right. I think women are underrepresented within the construction sector, which is really unfortunate, because I think construction can provide an excellent career for people, particularly women. I mean, what we do know is that when we look at the difference between heavy machine operators who are male and heavy machine operators who are female, the maintenance costs for heavy machines is less if it's a female. And I think that speaks in part to how females typically, and I don't want to use the word stereotypically, but typically they're they're more measured, they're less prone to outbursts, they're a little less aggressive with the machinery. So there's lots of advantages. And look, I personally believe that workplaces that have a closer balance of 50-50 in terms of males and females actually are better places to work. They're more productive, they're more efficient. I think that simply by virtue of the fact that we're recognizing that women may have different challenges than men, I think opens the door, or at least provides an invitation to women that okay, this is an industry that considers me and considers how I see the world and how I may need different ways of accessing mental health issues. So we are very keen to make sure that we do have offerings that are useful to all members of the construction sector.
Mm-hmm. Now, part 4, and this kind of strikes me as the crux of the whole thing, is taking action to help myself. So how can an employee, once they recognize that they have a mental health challenge, how can they help themselves? Because they probably have no idea where to go once they've figured out that they have something to deal with, how to deal with it.
Yeah, so I'll take that one. So I think the website does a great job of providing different pathways to what the answer is. What do you do? It really depends on what your situation is, but there are some really good information and also connection to resources. Like folks can come to the re-mind.ca website and just take some screening tests and use screening tools that will give you an answer right away, help you understand, do I actually need to talk to my doctor? And then there are also resources that are unique to the construction industry. Some folks may be able to access those resources. They're outlined on this website. And I would also suggest that people be interested to find out what resources their employer offers, because some employers offer confidential counseling, and you don't need to be, really unwell to benefit from that. You can be, feeling great and just want to do a little check-in. Am I doing things the right way to help myself stay mentally healthy over the long term, in the long game?
Yeah, and Warren, I think it's really important right now that we're going through this phase of normalizing the conversation around mental health issues. If you look at other associations that are our partners, the Vancouver Island Construction Association has some excellent resources. They've got a toolbox talk as well. If you look at the ICBA, they're doing a lot of work around this file as well. And really the push is for us all to normalize this to start the conversation. And when you look at the Remind website and that section 4 that we're talking about currently, it's really the leap off point. If the first step on this journey is 100% the hardest. And I think that if we can provide an opportunity and another pathway in to get that conversation started, we've done our job.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of first steps, part 5 is how to help a colleague. So I would assume for a lot of people, the first thing they do is confide in somebody before they go to, say, their boss or to a professional. So how does one help a colleague?
I think it depends. First of all, the most important thing is to be open to noticing. And notice how a person is, usually you pay attention, connect with people, learn what healthy looks like for them. And then, on the Remind.ca website, they can see some descriptions of things that you might notice that could suggest that person isn't doing okay. And having empathy and giving that person a safe person to talk to is one of the most important steps towards getting support. That fear that my colleagues are going to notice and recognize something's up with me, that fear is a huge obstacle to getting support. So if you can be that support person, offer that person to help them connect to services, that would be the best way. And there's some specific way, we even have information how to start the conversation about mental health. And then, what are the warning signs of suicide for those who are on the more distressed side?
And I guess we've been talking about employees here, but employers also have responsibilities in this whole thing. And that's the last part of the Remind site, how to respond to your team's mental health needs. So, Mike, you already listed off some ways people are responding, but what are some other ways that employers can sort of help their employees along this path?
Well, I think what we've done with the Remind website is we've made things simple. And so we wanted to ensure that in a busy construction environment that those employers that are taking the step to recognize that mental health is something that helps productivity, that helps with the overall health of their workforce, that we provided something that they could easily grasp. And so as part of the Remind website, there's a toolbox doc that's been specifically built around the Lone Hunter video. So what employers can do is they can show the video on site. It's easy to show on a phone, on an iPad. Maybe they have maybe they've got a particular area where they hold weekly toolbox talks, daily toolbox talks, safety meetings, etc. And then it's got a step-by-step guide that allows them to engage. Look, we understand this is a difficult conversation, not just for workers, but for employers as well. And we're trying to make it as easy as possible for them to be able to have that conversation. And the other thing too is we're all aware that it's becoming increasingly more difficult to get people to work in any industry. And, you know, in an industry that's really still very dependent on its workforce, it's incumbent upon employers to make sure that the environment is such that, one, you're going to attract workers and you're going to keep the workers that you have, you know, on site. And if mental health is an issue, this is an excellent way to ensure that you're you know, achieving that goal of remaining productive and keeping your valuable employees on site.
And just further to that, Mike, that's such a great launching point, but I want to also introduce the idea that mental health actually fits in a health and safety framework. And, you know, if there's a saying, you need more than a hard hat to keep your head in the game. And you know that we know that in the construction industry, there are a high proportion of people who are struggling and having difficulties keeping their head in the game. And with a health and safety lens, we recognize the risk for physical injury is much higher if somebody doesn't have their head in the game. So if we take that lens and you think about how far employers can really recognize that connection for physical health and safety, the value in offering training and teaching people healthy ways to move around the work site, how to use equipment, how to you know, relate to each other in your physical space. This is the same for mental health, and the outcomes and the value of doing that is, I would argue, probably more impactful than on the physical health and safety side. So there are real avenues and benefits for employers to be doing that.
Okay, and finally, we've already listed off what the website is. So I would ask, what are some final words of encouragement for people to check out the website? Either of you can chime in on this.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's really important to understand how this came to be. And, you know, the BCCSA board committed money of its own. It's not money that's come from anywhere else. It's money that the BCCSA has generated. And the board of directors, which is comprised of construction senior decision makers, you know, decided, look, this was important. This is something that we're going to put our money where our mouth is. And then over and above that, working with Diana and Diana's expertise and her connections, this was really an interesting project. And I think it's been a project that's been very valuable for the industry. You know, we engage with Hollywood North. I mean, the production value of this Lone Hunter video is amazing. And that took a lot of people coordinating to make that happen. You know, we led heavily on the sort of better angels, if you will, within the film sector. And they gave us, you know, unbelievable access to great actors, great people, great production value. We had Scott Construction that stepped up and also provided work sites for a bunch of new people on site, which in and of itself is very difficult. And then over and above that, it was during COVID. And then I think the other thing that's important to also recognize is that we also engage with the University of British Columbia. They've got a group of people out there called Heads Up Guys, and they specialize in ensuring that the information that we're producing speaks to the male mindset. And so, you know, there's been a lot of work that's gone into this, and there's been a lot of goodwill because people recognize this is a real issue and one that we need to address, because if we don't, it's not going to go away. And I think I just want to say one other thing. You know, the BCCSA is also working with, you know, Simon Fraser, and they have over the university. They've got a Center for Applied Research in Mental Health and Addiction. It's called Karma, And so we've engaged with two occupational health physicians who specialize in addictions. One gentleman who actually runs the rehab facility over in Cobble Hill, and also a researcher out of Simon Fraser. And what they're doing is they're producing a blueprint for mental health, because what we want to avoid is the ready, fire, aim approach. I mean, we've got a lot of good resources that already exist in this website, but we're trying to get a really good handle on what the issue is. So they're researching the construction sector to determine exactly what the issues around mental health are. And then, then we'll start producing other types of tools and resources, and hopefully we'll do that in conjunction with Work to Wellness as well, to make sure that we're getting tools out that are really hitting the mark. So it's been a great project, Warren. I really appreciate the journal's interest, and I think this is just the beginning for us.
And Diana, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think everybody involved in the project, so interesting, their passion and interest about really connecting with people and helping people have better lives and be safer and healthier. This was a theme through the whole project. We have a set of tools here. We want people to use them. So this Lone Hunter video, watch it and think about this as an opportunity to really change things in your work environment. If you could watch this together as, a toolbox talk at the beginning of the day, there's a script that's there for somebody who wants to introduce that video, how to talk about it. This is how we can really make a difference, is start these conversations. So this has been an amazing project. BCCSA, they are leaders, not just in the industry, but in all industries. I have not had the pleasure of any industry stepping so far forward into this space and just being so focused on practical tools. So I hope that, there's much more coming. And I hope that every person who's listening to this podcast can see for themselves the value in this website, spread the word, get things, get conversations going, and real difference can be made. Thanks so much, Warren, for the opportunity.
No problem at all. Thanks. And once again, everyone, that website is re-mind.ca. Thanks for listening.